So a lot of times you'll have generators that they will start and they will run between 15 seconds and a minute and then cut off. And everybody will tell you, especially on the internet, that it's a low oil sensor that's bad. Now, there's actually several things that can cause that problem. So what we'll do is first we'll disconnect the low oil sensor. So on this generator, I've already disconnected it, and what happens is the yellow wire here is a low oil sensor. So what you want to do is take this apart and make sure that it doesn't touch anything metal, and then run your generator and see if that's the problem. Now, if it's not the problem, you want to go ahead and leave this disconnected, because what you might find is you have several things wrong with it. So once you diagnose whatever's wrong with it and repair it, then reconnect that to make sure it'll run at the end. The next thing you want to look at is the fuel cap. On a lot of these, with this return line, it'll crack and corrode, and that can be a problem. The other thing is, if the vent in here is blocked and you're not getting air into your fuel tank, what may happen is it'll run a little while, and then when it gets a vacuum, it'll cut off. So what you want to do is start it and let it run with your fuel cap loose and see if that is the issue. Now, the other thing you can have is a carburetor problem. If you got old fuel in there, you may have to clean or replace your carburetor. Now, one thing I don't like on a lot of these machines is your main fuel line from your cutoff will run down behind here, so you got to take all this stuff off and take the plate off using these screws in order to access this and pull this line off. Now, if you got bad gas, you probably ruined your carburetor. You can try to clean it. Sometimes that works, sometimes it don't. But what I find is the most common problem is this fuel shutoff valve. Because what happens is you have two small ports in there and you have the sediment bowl at the bottom. Most of these generators have no filter for the fuel inside of the tank. So you have raw gas with all the crap comes down into this switch. And when you turn this valve switch, you have two little tiny ports. And you have a canal that the fuel drains through into this hose. So what will happen is this hose will fill up with fuel because it's dripping a little bit, but it's not flowing good, and your generator will run for a little while and then cut off. And then when you let it sit, it'll fill back up. So to test that, you want to remove this fuel line down here, turn this switch on, and see how it flows through here. And if you're getting drips instead of constant flow, your problem's in here. Now, your bigger problem is to work on this valve. If this is clogged up, you're going to have to take your fuel tank off or use a siphon to pull the fuel out. Because when you pull this off, it's going to dump all the gas on the engine. So what we'll do is take the tank off. I won't show you that on video. And then we'll take this fuel valve apart and I'll show you how to work on it. So here we have our switch pulled out of the machine, on-off switch for the fuel, and we've already taken off the bowl on the bottom and cleaned it. So once you check this bowl and clean it, then what you'll do is take these two screws out, and what you'll find is there is a spring under this switch. Make sure you don't lose it. Then under that you have a gasket that's in between this switch and the body of the valve. And you'll have to clean the portholes, and you want to make sure that you can get flow using your cleaner through here and down into this area and also into this bowl. Because what will happen is when you have this in the off position, it will drain sediment down into this fuel trap. So occasionally you're going to want to take this fuel trap off and clean it. So this is where you have the problem at. Right in here you have two small holes in the fuel shutoff valve. So your fuel comes from the tank down into here. It comes out this hole, and in your on-off switch you have a little canal cut out here. So the fuel comes out of this hole, it goes around the canal and into this hole, and then it comes out of your pipe. So what happens is, most generators, there's no fuel filter in the tank or above this assembly. So you can get trash in here. The other thing that happens is, as this seal deteriorates here, this gasket, it can fill the holes up. So when I pulled this apart, it had junk all in here. So when I blew cleaner into here, nothing would come out on this side or the base where you have a fuel bowl. So this is your fuel bowl, and it goes on the bottom of your on-off switch down here. So this is designed to catch, so this fuel bowl is designed to catch sediment and junk after it's actually gone through the fuel system or it's in the off position. So you got to make sure these gaskets are good and that you're not getting junk in these holes. And when you're looking at this assembly, everybody will tell you that the generator is suffering from a bad low oil switch because it gives the same symptoms. So what happens is, you will get enough fuel dripping through this assembly to fill up your fuel line. You'll run your generator, and then what will happen is it'll start to run rough and cut off. And it'll run for 15 seconds. Sometimes it'll run a minute, depending on how clogged this is. The problem with this is you can't drain the fuel out of the tank when this is clogged up. So what happens is you have to actually take the fuel tank off of the generator and drain it, and then remove this to work on it. So this is a common problem, but I've never seen it mentioned on the internet or by a lot of the small engine mechanics. So this is an item that you can fix yourself. So always take your fuel line off of the engine side and test it to see if you're getting flow through the on-off valve, because a lot of time that'll be filled up with sediment. So now we've got it all back together. So please comment, rate, subscribe. We'll see you on the next video.